Mr. Graham, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. Would you, obviously I've put on the record, Group Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director, would you like to make an opening statement?
Yes, please, Chair, I would. Thank you. Thank you, Chair and Senators. My name is Paul Graham. I'm the Group Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Australia Post. I'm joined today by Jane Anderson, our Executive General Manager, Community Sustainability and Stakeholder Engagement, and Mr. Nick McDonald, the Group Corporate Secretary. I'd like to start by acknowledging traditional custodians and Ngunnawal and Ngamberi peoples and pay my respects to their elders. I thank the committee for the opportunity to provide this brief statement. Australia Post continues to make significant progress on our Post-26 transformation program, which is driving material improvements across the business. Whilst we've not yet announced our first half results, the combination of our Post-26 strategy, modernisation reforms approved by Parliament and a record peak, we delivered 1.2 million packages, has underpinned a strong performance in the first half. Although positive, it's important to note our first half is traditionally profitable, whilst we usually run at a large loss in the second half, and we don't anticipate FY25 to be any different. Australia Post continues to face a number of challenges, both structural and competitive, and letter volumes continue to decline year on year. And I have said before, letters will never return to profitability, but I can assure you that Australia Post will continue to deliver mail to every part of the country until the last letter is sent. Additionally, we are under significant competitive pressure from global logistics and e-commerce providers making significant investments in our market, along with the growing number of foreign startups. Australia Post competes against these players who don't make the same important to our contribution to our job market, economy and community well-being. We are committed to supporting Australia and the community, which is why it's important we build a long-term financially sustainable business. We recently announced new in-principle Bank at Post agreements with Australia's big banks. Before this, Bank at Post was on a pathway of significant financial losses, and these deals were secured after months of challenging negotiations. I want to thank the Australia Post team for securing the new agreements and the government for their support in delivering a much improved Bank at Post outcome. On behalf of the millions of Australians who use our banking services, I'd also like to thank the banks for signing up to the new funding agreements. It will enable us to continue to provide basic banking in the hundreds of communities where the post office is the last bank in town. And while these new deals will help reduce Bank at Post losses, Australia Post, the government and the banks all recognise we need a longer-term solution to ensure services remain available and financially viable, especially in rural and regional Australia. It's also great news for our licensed post offices. They will have greater certainty over the service, and with ANZ agreeing to join, we'll be able to help more customers conduct banking through Australia Post. Our licensees are hard-working, family-run businesses who are the heart and soul of their communities. But we are experiencing a generational change in how customers use their local post office, compounded by the age and demographics of our licensee community. Declining foot traffic and a reduction in over-the-counter transactions are all having an impact as our economy digitises, which will only accelerate. Australia Post remains committed to working with our licensees to help build a more sustainable future for these small business owners, but it will be challenging. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the Australia Post team who worked around the clock during our record-breaking peak season to ensure Australian families received their parcels. I would like to thank our extended workforce of 64,000 team members for making this possible. We're also very mindful, Chair, that 2025 is a federal election year, and I can assure the committee we are primed and ready to help with the democratic process when the election is called.
Already got the bookings in.
We have been working closely with the AEC to ensure our teams are ready to manage the increased demand during the campaign. Thank you, Senators, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Yes, you're very popular at this particular round of
estimates. Hope that remains, Chair. Let's hope that remains.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that update. That's very helpful. We will go to Senator Cadell.
I have lots of questions on behalf of others, so I'm the first batch I'll ask are not overly deeply knowledgeable. First one regarding Northern Territory postcode 0822. I think you're aware. I think the Chief Minister up there wrote up a lot of residential suburban areas of Palmerston are caught up in the very rural postcode as the rest of Northern Territory and paying higher freight and package rates. Is there any potential to review that area? Because it wouldn't be a big adjustment, it'd just be getting out of Palmerston a bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. We get numerous requests around postcodes, as you may imagine, both for insurance purposes, a whole raft of different issues. We look at each one on a case-by-case basis. We are looking at the Palmerston one, and as you say, as areas change and we see new housing developments, or there's a demographic shift or a population shift, we take that into consideration. So it's still under review, but at this point we haven't made any decision on that.
Right. So That's interesting. That's specific on how you just said you often get requests. How many requests would we be looking at?
I would have to take at a notice, but we get frequent requests, primarily around insurance purposes, because postcodes can influence where people have insurance premiums. So if you're in Walcombe Heights versus Walcombe Hills, it may be the same postcode, but people will ask to be the postcode for the next suburb because it's got a lower rate of or lower premium. Or the good folks of Norfolk Island who don't like a New South Wales postcode.
And anecdotally, I won't hold you to this. What percentage of it, for other reasons other than postage reasons, like this one?
We very rarely make any adjustments because the impact operationally can be quite significant to change postal rounds and also to inform things like online merchants that this suburb has now got a different postcode because they've got it set up in their systems for the original postcode. Yeah. So we reluctantly do it. I can't recall actually having done any in my time in this role, but again, happy to take that on notice.
So we review a lot, but we don't approve a lot?
Correct.
Okay. I'm putting my vote in. Help the people of Palmerston. I'll say that and I'll move on.
We will take that on board, Sandra.
The interesting when you say we review a lot, we don't do a lot. I asked about post office closures and you've raised some there and we have a lot of general chases. I have a question on notice before SQ 241490 if you want to look it up, but it's about post office closures and which ones were planned and which ones have occurred. Now, the interesting thing is on there, very specifically Auburn is listed, and I saw a social media post by Mr. Jason Clare stating that he won a lobbying thing with you to overturn and keep Auburn open. Have any others remained open off that list?
Thank you, Senator, for your question. We have not overturned any decisions that we have made around closures. We did not make a decision to close Auburn. It was forced upon us through redevelopment of that post office area. It is a very busy area and that post office has a lot of foot traffic. We also have a larger proportion of over-the-counter services in Auburn through either language issues or cultural issues. So when that post office was closed due to factors outside our control, we did a review, as we will always do. We have found a new premises. It is a smaller footprint than the original one, but we believe that sustaining a postal service in Auburn because of the foot traffic and the demographic profile was important, and therefore we will be opening a new postal service there. It is a smaller footprint, significantly smaller than the original one, but again reinforce the fact that we have not had any decision that we have formally made to close overturned.
Okay, so of this other list, the rest of the ones on here, have there been any others that commercial reasons have seen them reopen elsewhere, or that was Auburn's the only one?
We've had a number of, I'd have to go through the list in details, and we have closures due to eviction notices, redevelopment, a whole range of different things. Where we believe that there is a need for a post office in that community, we will look to find alternative premises. Some cases that is not available, but if it is available, then we will look to take a tenancy in that, or we will look to find an in conjunction post office that may be with a IGA or a newsagents or a pharmacy, which would be a better longer term economically viable solution than having another licensee who may struggle with the rent of a single source business.
So, without knowing others, how long was Auburn closed for?
I'll take that on notice, Sandra. Off the top of my head, I believe it's about 8 months. It's still not reopened.
Right. So, potentially I'll ask on notice, because I won't know now, of sites that have closed in the last 2 years, any that are reopened or imminent to reopen in similar sites?
Take it on notice. I would say there are a few, because the vast majority of closures have related to where we have significant overlap and duplication. Likewise, we did still have a licensee buyback program, which has been supported by both the licensee associations and the union. And this is targeted at metropolitan areas where we have significant overlap. So a large proportion of those are ones where we have worked with the licensee to transition them either to retirement or to something else. But we will come back specifically on your question, are there any post offices where we have closed for whatever reason and reopened again in the same community.
That you've found somewhere 6 months later.
Correct.
2 months
I believe
later.
the number is very small, but we'll take it on notice and come back to you, Senator.
Okay. So to be clear, there was no ministerial direction to reopen Auburn?
No, we reviewed that community as we review every other community.
Okay.
But you're right.
Pardon?
You're right. Mr. Clear is a very diligent local campaigner and local member.
But had no impact in this, apparently.
No, I think mobilising the community is always worthwhile.
Well, if we're mobilising community...
Senator Cannell.
Very specifically, I'll go to a different one, then I'll go to the people in Willow Grove that you've also got on the same list. Mm-hmm. And the campaign they have put to me is that there was no community consultation on that closure in Willow Grove, and they just saw it as a difficult, and they did motivate, and they did do a similar sort of campaign. On the January 8th, they're told they have access to community mailboxes, but they don't have anywhere near the same as LPO. What is a community mailbox? Just a PO box?
Basically, yes, Senator. And again, Willow Grove was a decision made by the licensee, not by Australia Post.
Right. So is that one of the ones, the licensee, the age demographic you're going forward and looking at, no longer there? If someone in the community in Willow Grove was to say, I'm ready to step up, is that a new decision to be made by Australia Post, or are you happy that that's gone, or what's the situation?
Well, we've looked at Willow Grove, and again, we believe there are sufficient services within a very close proximity. If someone was to put their hand up and say they would want to take on that licence, we would counsel them on the viability of that, because one of the reasons why that licensee walked away is because it was not financially viable. And again, as I said in my opening statements, and due to a reduction in foot traffic through digitisation, range of services that we no longer provide, or indeed those services being provided through other parties, the viability of our licensees continues to come under pressure, which is why the Bank at Post agreement was so important for us to get renegotiated.
Okay, so was that a buyback or a walk away?
That was a walk away.
Really?
In my view, yes. I'll double check, but I believe it was a walk away.
So, I mean, what would be the nearest places? Moe, Trafalgar?
I'm not familiar with that geography, Senator, but again, and to your other point about no community consultation, we have a very strict protocol of 90 days notice to the community. However, when a licensee hands back and then announces the community on the same day, we have very little control over that process.
Okay, so the 600 people on a petition should work out if one of them wants to step up with a viable business plan to come and see you and say...
We will talk to anybody that shows an interest. However, we will make them aware as to the factors behind our decision, the decision that was made by the licensee, which is primarily the fact that this may not be a viable business for them to undertake.
Who would they contact in your business? Because I'm told someone's there that wants to do it. Who would they contact?
Well, they would contact our head of... I can give you the name offline, Senator.
I would be happy to have that. That would be good.
Yep.
I'm happy to rotate it this time.
Okay, excellent. We'll go to Senator Billick.
Thank you. I'm interested in how Australia Post adjusts the services to meet the essential needs during a disaster. I'm thinking about the recent floods in North Queensland that have had such a devastating effect on the community, including, I presume, interrupting the essential services. So could you talk us through what happens there?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Yeah, we had about 70 post offices disrupted during the major flooding in North Queensland, and obviously we unfortunately have a well-trained muscle when it comes to natural disasters, given the propensity for them. We've put, for example, 6,000 school children through our pillowcase program that we run in conjunction with the Red Cross, which came in very beneficial during those North Queensland floods. That is basically a program that teaches primary school kids, in the event of a disaster, have your pillowcase ready. What do you want to take if you have to leave, obviously with very little notice? And we know that was used to great effect during those floods. We obviously put our temporary post offices on the ground where we can as soon as possible. We do have post offices that basically come off the back of a truck and we drop them on the ground. We also provided 12 months free mail redirection for those people who had lost their homes. And we also put out through social media and through a leaflet campaign how people affected by the flooding could avail themselves of change of address services, redirection services, or indeed our Bank at Post, or other services that may be important to them in that tragic circumstance.
Thank you. And you mentioned Red Cross and the pillowcase. I think that's a brilliant little project, by the way. Is there any additional initiatives underway with community partners, such as the Red Cross, to support flood-impacted communities?
Yeah, we have an ongoing program. Lismore obviously was another one that came to mind, where again we have our post office on the ground within 36 hours of that terrible flooding. North Grange is a little bit different because it was such a vast area, but places like Cairns, for example, where you reopened temporarily, the next day to ensure that people could at least get access to parcels and mail. So we make sure that we are up and running as quickly as possible. And we shouldn't downplay not only the important impact of people being able to access important correspondence or indeed parcels, but the psychological impact of things getting back to normal because the postie's on the street saying g'day, and it's amazing the knowledge that our frontline team have of the areas that they patrol and deliver parcels and letters to. They know those that have been greatly impacted and provide a lift up of the spirit. So we've got our Red Cross pillowcase campaign. We obviously work very closely with Beyond Blue and making sure that, again, mental health support through both our social media channels as well as leaflets that are available through our vast postal network are there to help give people access to necessary support and where to find help.
Good work, thank you.
Senator Cadell.
Hello, welcome again. Bank at Post, I think that's in our private meetings and everything, we've said that. Interesting terminology that concerned me slightly. You said you will reduce your losses under the new deal for Bank at Post. Are they still not paying their fair share or their full way so that we can make a slight profit out of Bank at Post?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, it was certainly a tense negotiation, and we are very happy that we have been able to conclude agreements with the three major banks, but also especially happy that ANZ have decided to join. They will not join till October. And indeed, we will wrap up the finite negotiations of these new deals probably by the end of this financial year. So in this financial year, we will still lose money on Bank at Post, but as we enter the new financial year with the new agreements in place and ANZ coming on stream in October, again, difficult for us to predict the full extent of the revenue because a lot of it is based on transactional volume, and we don't know those transactions. Yes, we have forecasts, but they may be, a plus or minus. But certainly the new agreements put us on a far stronger financial footing with the prospect of ensuring we cover our core costs, and those costs are split into the revenue that goes for transactions and what we call our community representation fee, which is to pay for the infrastructure, access to the network, cyber security, training, compliance, and security.
Okay, so I think in my private conversations with you, once again, not opposition policy, I said that when banks are saving so much money by closing branches, losing their cash handling fees to move cash around the country, and then able to charge people surcharges for their card transactions, it's only fair that they pay their fair share of the replacement. They have not necessarily been tense negotiations, you said, but they haven't been overly forthcoming with enough money to make this a more viable operation.
Well, we, again, not understanding the full volume of the transactions, and ANZ could have a material positive impact on that. It's difficult to predict. We also deal with 80 other financial institutions, so it is quite a complex business to understand exactly where we will end up. As I say, this financial year we will certainly not make money on Bank at Post, but going forward, depending on transaction volumes, we are on a much stronger footing. We also have a 3+2 year agreement. The other agreements were long-term agreements with no CPI in many of them. So we are able to sit around the negotiating table in 3 years' time when the circumstances may be better known as to what the longer-term outlook is around banking services in Australia.
You said ANZ's done for October. How about HSBC and Macquarie?
We've had fruitful talks with Macquarie. We've discussion with HSBC next week, I believe. Macquarie's early discussions have been positive, and I would remain hopeful that they, like the other major banks, recognise the community responsibility they have to ensuring that the essential Bank at Post services we provide in over 3,300 branches are sustained.
Are there any, is there a pecking order of potentially smaller branches or smaller financial institutions that we'll also have conversations with going forward to once again increase? Do you have Bendigo?
We do have Bendigo, yes.
Yep.
We have the vast majority. There may be a couple of stragglers, but say over 80 financial institutions that we do business with, and we encourage all of them to participate in Bank at Post where they see that of value to them and, more importantly, value to their customers.
My hometown, Newcastle Perm, Greater Bank.
Sorry?
The Newcastle Permanent Building Society, Greater Bank.
I believe they are a member, but I will take that on notice and check, yeah.
Fair enough.
There's far more who are than those who are not.
Are you finding concerns around cash handling vehicles and the companies that do that makes your business more complicated as well, the Prosegur and Armaguard issues?
Well, we have seen with the reduction in bank branches, particularly in places where we're the only banking service in town, that we have borne the cost of that cash availability to that community, which is one of the key issues on the table with our renegotiation.
Farmers love cash.
Yes, and that's the local coffee shop, it's the hairdresser, it's the cash float, it's the local footy team, it was a dollar coin day, all of those very important things, and we provide that service. It's public knowledge that there has been discussions ongoing with Armaguard and the funding parties for what was a 12-month funding arrangement, of which Australia Post is party to. We continue to participate in those discussions, and we are hopeful that we will be able to reach, along with the other funding parties, a longer-term solution. But as we have seen the decline in cash overall, that becomes more challenging for the community. And indeed, whilst there has been digitisation of transactions, there are still an important element of the community that does play in cash or use cash, and we tend to skew more towards that element of the community because of our over-the-counter services. So it is the people who are more vulnerable, who need assistance, and therefore cash remains an important outlet for our customers. Okay.
Another statement in your opening statement, you don't think will be profitable again, I think was words to that effect, or soon, and I understand that.
Our mail business, Senator.
Yeah, mail business, yeah. I think the Christmas business keeps you going. If only Easter eggs didn't melt or break, you might have another big delivery bonus there. But anyway, cost of stamps, $1.50 now. Is there a review of that going on?
There is, Sander. We have made an application which has been made public to the ACCC to increase the price of a stamp another 20 cents. As we know, we still have one of the lowest stamp prices in the OECD. 98.5% of all stamps or mail is corporate mail. We believe the 20 cents, whilst it is an impost on the average household, but based on the number of letters that the average household sends, it'll be about $1.20 a year. And the vast majority, indeed most of the cost will be borne by corporate Australia.
Okay. What timings are indicative for decisions on that?
The ACCC has a process. We would be hopeful that they would conclude their process and advise us of their view before the end of this calendar year.
Calendar year?
Correct.
A long time.
Yes, it is an extensive process of review, including at times external parties employed by the ACCC. It is a complicated process that has been put in place many, many years ago, and one that's still followed by the ACCC under the guidance of Treasury, due to the fact that we have obviously a letter monopoly.
Okay. Question off the books. Like, last few times I've been stunned by the number of dog attacks for your staff and the steps you have to take to keep people safe. Are we seeing any trend in that decreasing, or is it getting worse? We are seeing it getting slightly worse, Senator, unfortunately. We have had some great support in public campaigns. South Australian Government particularly, I'd like to call out, who stood up and with the Department of Transport ran a very strong public campaign, both in social media as well as in collaboration with us and our post offices, so posters and material in each post office. We've taken a number of actions to help address this. One, we have deployed citronella spray, which is targeted at dogs and seems to be working. We've tried many, many things. This one does seem to be working. The other important action we've taken is, for the first time, we've actually launched public prosecutions against household offenders.
and we've been able to have 4 successful prosecutions, I believe, to date. The individual postie has to take the prosecution because it's they who have been injured under the Public Liability Act. We obviously provide financial and legal support to do that, and then any settlement we reach goes directly to the postie.
Right, so you indemnify their costs basically?
Absolutely, and the benefit of the outcome goes to them. What we have seen since those actions have been successful is an increase in awareness from insurance companies. Because obviously ultimately they're the ones that pay out that public liability, and we are working with them through our community team and government relations team to have them also embark on a campaign of social media and with their members to reinforce the importance of dog security and to show some of the recent prosecutions we have had as an example to what could happen to them as individual households should they fail to restrain their dogs appropriately.
Okay. I can't recall. There was a strange attack, a non-dog attack you told me about last time, but I can't recall what animal it was. It was a bit strange. But any other ones?
We have some very interesting ones, Senator.
How many houses are blocked from delivery because of dogs at the moment, do you know?
There are none that I'm aware of today. What we do is when we have a serious attack, we ban delivery in that street for a week.
That's if it's on the street, not in the premises, isn't
correct.
it? Yeah, correct.
Correct, yes. And we obviously engage with local council, but I'm not aware of any we have at the moment. But again, as you say, unfortunately, these are day-to-day incidents, so there could have been one in the last 48 hours. I'm not being made aware that we may have put a ban on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dunn.
Thank you. In your opening statement, you touched on some of the changes to your delivery model as part of the government's modernisation reforms. I wondered if you could expand on that a little bit and give us an update on how it's tracking in terms of implementation overall, and what you're seeing in terms of improvements to the organisation in a bit more detail.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Yeah, we have what we call our new delivery model. We've now rolled it out to 70% of all our facilities, so it's a fairly extensive number. We did say it would take between 14 and 16 months to roll it out across the network, obviously a very large network, but it has been received really well by our frontline team members. I've been to many of our facilities where it's been implemented and they would not go back to the previous process that we had. They feel that they are being kept productive. They are, in many cases, delivering more small parcels than they would have been able to under the old method. The feedback we've got from community is no one has noticed any change in their mail delivery because, frankly, the average household gets between 1 and 2 letters a week. And I have many people who said they don't check their mailbox for weeks on end and still discover nothing. What we have seen, though, is a bit of a positive halo effect in that people believe they're getting a superior parcel service because they see the postie carrying more small parcels. So our team members feel that they are being more productive and having a more fulfilling role. We are not getting any negative feedback from community or customers in regard to mail. We're getting a positive uplift, neutral to positive uplift in relation to our parcel service. We expect to complete the other 30% before the start of peak this year, which will be about October.
And, you talked a bit about the change, I guess, in terms of post and parcels. How is productivity being improved through the implementation of the new delivery rosters?
We have seen an increase in productivity. Again, difficult to say until we've completely rolled out the network and settled it down. But as we are able to get posties delivering every alternative day, we still deliver mail every single day. And I think that's been a misnomer by some members of the public. Every day we still deliver mail, but it is split between a heavy round and a light round. We are seeing a productivity uplift due to that. And obviously, as we're able to stream more parcels, more small parcels to these posties, that is an activity that would have gone to contractors or other areas. So that's a productivity benefit as well. I think it will take us probably until this time next year to get a full assessment of the overall impact in the network. But we are on track in terms of what we believe the advantages would have been. And we remain cautiously optimistic we'll deliver the financial as well as the workplace benefits that we anticipated when we asked for reform to the government.
Okay. Thank you. And in terms of your meeting peak demand, I think in your opening statement, I think you said that the last season was the highest. Is that right?
Correct, Sandy. We
Yeah.
had a record. This is parcels, which obviously most of our customers are interested in. We did a record of 102.8 million parcels for what we regard as the peak period. So if you want a fun fact, literally 2,345 parcels every minute during that period. That was helped, first of all, by our team members who made a fantastic effort to ensure those parcels were delivered on time. We also had a record service in relation to that peak period, the highest service that we have delivered, and the strongest customer satisfaction that we have seen as well. It also was assisted by the significant investment we have made in our network of billions of dollars over the last 3 years.
Yeah. And so that investment in terms of the logistics side of the business to meet increased consumer demand for online shopping, that's what you're referring to?
Correct, Sandy. We've opened a number of new facilities. We've got more facilities on the go, a new large facility, for example, in Brisbane. We're now looking at Adelaide, for example, and what we do there in terms of a significant investment. And we've allocated capital both in our current financial year and our forward 3-year projection to continue to upgrade. We are in a bit of an arms race when it comes to ensuring that we provide the level of service that customers and consumers expect. And as we're all consumers, we know that those expectations continue to increase.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just ask a quick question? The viability of the individual post offices around where I live, there are 2, and they both sit in the corner of a chemist, which is great because they have quite extended hours and, you know, it's very convenient. Does that sort of co-location make a fundamental difference to their viability, or is it more about what the inputs are versus what the financial outputs are?
Good question, Sandra. Thank you. We've got 72 post offices in chemist premises. We find that's a very positive arrangement. One, as you say, provides extended hours, which we don't do in our corporate post offices, so usually 7 days a week, early evening opening hours. Because it's there in conjunction with another viable business, then the economics work out because they're able to share labour and obviously share rental space. In most cases, the chemist is the licensee, and we find that they are positive towards the additional foot traffic that our post office generates, because you're going in to do your parcel service or buy a stamp. You may go past the lolly count or pick up something else that is on your mind when you're in that premises. So we find that's a very positive relationship, and we look to continue to increase that relationship as those opportunities present themselves.
Thank you. Senator Cadell.
Thank you, Chair. Just going on. Oh, no, not for this one. That's fine. Yeah. Another 420 questions. No. Going back, I've just been going over that FOI more. It seems 35 members of Parliament over this government have written to you about reversal of, including the good minister sitting to your left in financial year 2023 for a 24 post office. So none have been successful. No members of Parliament have convinced you to keep a post or change your decision on a post office closure?
No decisions have been made that related to the influence of any member of Parliament. Any decision that we have made to sustain a post office in that area is based purely on the process that we operate on.
So I should tell Mary Aldred, our candidate down in Monash, that she has little chance of turning your decision on Wattle Grove.
Based on past form, yes, that would be the case.
Okay,
Senator.
thank you very much.
Thank you for that. A bit of clarity there. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming along. It's always great to hear about the progress you're making.